It is time for another Dining Through the Decades, which is a monthly series I have here on my channel where I pick a recipe from the past and I give it a try. And I got my inspiration originally to start this series from this cookbook that I found, nostalgic recipes from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I've been taking a few of them from here so far, but I think I'll also be using some other recipes that I have in my collection as well. So it's time for supper. So I'm making supper tonight for this recipe. And I'm not quite sure. This recipe is from the 1950s, and I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce it. It looks something like a lasagna here, but it's got like a layer of like macaroni, and then a layer of like a meat mixture. And then I'm not quite sure what is on the top, if it's not a cheese mixture or what it is. I'm not sure. But it's called, I'll put it up here so I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right. If you know what it's called, you can tell me exactly how to pronounce it, but I'll put it here on the screen. Pastitsio maybe, or Pastitsio. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what I'm making. It looks something like a lasagna and a shepherd's pie if you throw mac and cheese or something into it. So it's from the 1950s. So I'm going to give it a try. So for this recipe, I need 1 pound of ground beef or lamb. Now this is where I'm going to make a substitute because I don't eat beef personally. My husband does, but I don't have any ground beef on hand, and we're both eating this one tonight. Also, we don't eat lamb, so I don't have ground beef or ground lamb. So I am going to use some ground, I have it there, just ready to go throw in the pan, ground chicken. So that's what I'm going to use, and hopefully it'll be fine because ground chicken doesn't really have a flavor, so it takes on the flavor of whatever spices you're cooking with. So I also need 1.5 cups of mild picante sauce. I'm probably saying that wrong too. And our grocery stores I've checked to did not have picante sauce. When I looked it up and looked up the difference between picante sauce and salsa, it looked like it was more of a finer blend. So this one is not super fine, but it's finer than a chunkier salsa. So I might run this through the blender. It's just a salsa Mexicana. And they asked for a mild one. They didn't have mild salsa in this smaller jar, so they have medium. So it's going to be a little bit more of a zip than this recipe calls for, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I think I'm going to run this through the blender to try to get closer to that picante sauce. It needs 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. So I have this small little can here. It takes allspice and cinnamon, ground nutmeg. It takes some sugar. And then it asks for 1 cup of the elbow macaroni. So I have the water going here. It's actually 8 ounces it calls for, but that works out to being about a cup around. So I've got the water now for the macaroni boiling, so I'm going to add that in. It also calls for 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'll be using gluten-free flour for this. 1.5 cups of milk, half a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 2 eggs, and 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And I think I might, I think I have 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, so we'll use that. So first things first, I'm going to get the elbow macaroni cooking here, and then I'm also going to brown up the ground chicken and go from there. So this is all browned up now, and so now it's time to add the picante sauce, but I'm going to just leave it as is. I'm not going to blend this salsa up. And the tomato sauce, and then add the nutmeg, the cinnamon, and the allspice, and I believe the sugar. Yes, and the sugar as well. Now I only had to put a half the amount of the nutmeg in. Yes, because the rest of it gets sprinkled later on top. So I have to put in 1 teaspoon of the sugar, half a teaspoon of the allspice, half a teaspoon of the cinnamon, and then 1/8 of a teaspoon of the nutmeg. I added the whole jar because there was only about a tablespoon or so left, so I'm sure it'll be just as good. Okay, so I'm going to just let this come to a boil and for about 10 minutes. Okay, so while that does its thing, I have in this pan, and this is what I cooked the pasta in, so I'm just reusing the same pot. I'm melting 3 tablespoons of butter, and then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of flour. Now I'm using gluten-free, you can use regular flour. And I'm making that roux. So it needs this white sauce roux that it's going to make. And then so once the flour kind of cooks up a bit, I'm going to add the milk and then the salt and pepper and let that cook and thicken up. And then I will stir in the eggs. So I have to whisk together 2 eggs and then add a half a cup of this sauce to the eggs, whisk it, and then add it into here, stir it all together, and then add the Parmesan cheese on top of that. So it's quite a process. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to stir this and work on this, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so that is nice and thick now, so I'm just going to remove it from the heat as it asks me to do. And I have a bowl here, and I'm going to whisk 2 eggs into this bowl and then take a half a cup of this mixture and then whisk it into here and then put the whole thing back into there, mix it up, and add the Parmesan cheese. So there it is, all mixed in. So now on to the next step. All right, so we have the sauce here, and it says to take about a half a cup of the white sauce and pour it in to this pan with the macaroni. So this is an 8x8 square pan, I believe. It says, I think, a 9x9 in, yeah, 9-inch square. I only have this one, so this will be fine. So I'm going to take a half a cup of the mixture and then mix it into the pasta. I just remembered something. I forgot to put the cheese in. Whoops. So what I'm going to do is just sprinkle a little bit in here. Don't do what I did. And I'm just going to put a little bit in there for now. Mix it in. Now I'm going to put the rest of the, so I needed half a cup, so I put some in there, so I'm going to put a third a cup in the rest of this. And then just quickly stir it in. It's still pretty hot, so it's not going to take much to get it mixed in there. There. It's already in. None the wiser. None the wiser. Okay, so now that this is mixed in, I'm going to take the meat mixture and pour it over top. Now with the meat mixture on, I'm going to just pour the remaining sauce over the top, and then it says to sprinkle it with the remaining nutmeg. So now I just need to put this in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, until I stick a knife in it and it comes out clean. So we're going to do that, and then I'll see you back here to give it a try. So there it is, out of the oven, cooked, and I let it set for 15 minutes like it said to do. Hopefully it's good. All right, we shall see how it tastes. All right, this might be a little messy getting it out of here, so we shall see. Oh, the bottom layer is still in there. of all the mac and cheese, or the macaroni rather, with the white sauce. All right, let's give it a try. Okay, I don't know if you can see it there. A little bit hard to see. I think the next scoop will look better, so I'll show a close up on the next scoop. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of the macaroni, a little bit of that custard on the top, a little bit of the meat mixture, and we'll give it a taste. It's actually pretty good. It has a nice flavor to it. I actually have made a lasagna before that had those same spices in it with ground chicken. So I knew those spices were going to go really well with ground chicken. But yeah, there's no, actually, even though this is a medium salsa I used, it's pretty mild actually. I like it. I like it. I would make this again. Yeah, definitely make it again. So thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen as I try another recipe as part of this Dining Through the Decades series. I can't even say what the name of this is, so somebody else is going to have to tell me. Pastitsio, maybe? I don't know. It was pretty good, as I said, and I've had some successes with this series and that cookbook, and then I had some not so successes. I think my last one was not so much of a success, but I think I definitely would make this one again. It's pretty good. It's kind of like part Tex-Mexy, Mexican, part Italian. It's quite like a mishmash of flavors, but it tastes pretty darn good. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and be well. And until next time, bye.